definitely Heidegger. Yep. Um, One thing that's definitely important to note about Heidegger is that he was indeed going on a crazy train and bringing a lot of people along with him. Anyway, um, let's start off by kind of going off what we're here to talk about. One of the first questions that we can discuss is what role did Heidegger want the German university to play in the overcoming of nihilism and the revitalization of the German nation? Heidegger wanted the German university to support him, but he also wanted them to support the Nazi movement. He did not consider himself to be 100% Nazi, and a lot of his beliefs differed slightly, but he did in fact join the Nazi Party. He was very anti-Semitic against Jews, their religion, and them being involved in society in general. Um, he A lot of his ideals and philosophies impacted not only the Nazi movement because he was very involved in it, but the way that he wanted to implement his philosophy to everybody. And we're going to look at that later on with a couple of the other questions we're going to discuss. But how else did he want the German university to kind of implement and overcome nihilism, but at the same time revitalize the German nation? Like I said, he wasn't fully supportive of the Nazi movement, but he did believe it was necessary. He used it to his advantage, and for the most part realized that it would bring a natural cleansing that was due for its time. He believed that it was definitely something that needed to happen. And the same goes for nihilism. He didn't agree completely with nihilism. He grew up Catholic, obviously separated from the church eventually, but he was not atheist. He was not an atheist. Nihilism is kind of the philosophy and the idea of nothing. Most nihilists were atheists. They just kind of nothing. And he wasn't so much for that, but again, he saw its potential and how it could benefit him, and he used it to his advantage. He believed that this short kind of um, um, kind of cleansing that would happen through nihilism and by the Nazi Party was something that would, in the long run, definitely help the German people. So another question that we can discuss is how would faculty and students be trained or adapted to help this task? Well, Heidegger focuses on obviously both the faculty and the students, but throughout most of his writings and his papers, he kind of narrowed down to the will of essence, and he believed that this will of essence what would lead the German people, faculty and staff, along with German universities and their education system, to kind of grow together and really work towards what he wanted to achieve. Um, as I said, he focuses a lot on the will, and the true will provided that German students, through the new student law, which he kind of created and defined to separate what was previously known as academic freedom. So he tried to move away from academic freedom, and the new student law was what he tried to implement. And he wanted students to place themselves under the law of their essence, but to follow the new student law. He claims the will to the essence, according to the law, is more pure and brings true freedom compared to what was considered at the time academic freedom. He believed academic freedom was very, very. It wasn't whole. It wasn't false for the most part. It was unsubstantial, and it wasn't really something that was truly driving the German people forward. Um, he believed the faculty could help achieve the goals that he wanted to, um, if it became capable of spiritual legislation, and that's kind of what he pushes forward and kind of um, keynotes and labels as what needed to be done, spiritual legislation, and the faculty becoming leaders. Not so much just for personal gain or the power hungry search for power. He believed that faculty needed to become leaders, not only to kind of implement spiritual legislation, but they needed to be leaders because in order to lead people, not only should they be capable of leading people, but they should be strong enough and capable of leadership in the worst of circumstances. So that's kind of why he wanted them to be leaders. The students, on the other hand, could only achieve this by placing themselves in the realm of this spiritual legislation so that they can um, tear down spiritual barriers between the state. And he kind of says that because, again, he wanted students to, under the new student law, to follow their true will and the law of their essence to achieve and kind of fall under this spiritual realization so that, or spiritual legislation, so that they could all fall under the same umbrella and they could all grow in the same way. He didn't want anybody to have these false pretenses. He wanted everyone to be under the same roof. And that brings us to the next question of what were the connections between Heidegger's philosophy and how do they connect to the goals that he wanted to set as rector of the University of Freiburg? Well, as I said before, he did eventually become the rector of the University of Freiburg. Around the same time, he did he did join the Nazi regime and became a member of the Nazi Party. So that kind of flows along with how his philosophy guided his actions. So, as I said before earlier, he did believe that the Jewish society of religion was an ill to Germany, and Heidegger had previously supported Nazis, but he himself believed that Jews were a common problem. His philosophy was that German universities should come together and teach for the greater good of the state, and with the rise of Hitler and the Nazi regime, he used that to propel his philosophy forward and tried to unify, as rector of the University of Freiburg, everyone under the Nazi regime and under the same kind of philosophy. He used the Nazi regime as a sort of common ground, and as rector of Freiburg, gave speeches, gave lectures, attended conferences in order to unify all other universities in Germany under that same umbrella. He pushed for all the universities to support the Nazi regime, to kick out Jewish teachings such as all these the theory of relativity. He pushed for all this to be gone. Anything that had to be to do with Jewish beliefs, and that's kind of how it connected with his role. Because when he did become the director of the University of Freiburg, he did push a lot of his philosophy onto politics, and that's kind of how everything rolled out. And like the introduction to the song said, everyone was on a crazy train. Thank you.